Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a reel that I personally enjoy fishing with. It's from my own stock of reels that I use out on the water. It's one of my favorites. Some folks have asked from time to time, what's your favorite fishing reels? I have several, but this is one of them. This is a Daiwa Sealine 300H. I've enjoyed fishing with this reel for years, and I hope to continue to enjoy it for a lot more time. There's a predecessor that I also enjoy. It's the Daiwa 50H, which is a wider carriage reel. I use both of them here on the Northeast, and today we're going to work on the 300H, which I'm going to get ready for the fall fishing season, where we go out for wreck fishing for blackfish and other game on the wrecks. So let me show you how to tune this reel up, which is the whole purpose of today's video. And what I'll also do along the way is I will give you a little bit of insight into what this reel is. So to start, I have a protective glove on my hand. I always like that to keep the contaminants off. And I have a parts tray where I put all my pieces and parts that come off the reel, so that I know where to find them when I go for reassemble. So I've worked on these reels a lot. I know these reels, but if you haven't worked on one and you have one and you want to tune it up, I would recommend that you go ahead and get the schematic for this. That'll show you the exploded view of the reel. And also you can take pictures with your cell phone or digital phone along the way, and that'll help you to see the sequence that you took the parts off, where they came off, and will help to assist on the reassembly. So one of the curious pieces here is that that nut actually is the same nut profile of a pen reel's handle screw. So if you have a pen reel's wrench like this one, you'll notice that it fits in there, and you can use that pen reel wrench on your Daiwa Sealine works. Okay, so we've taken that off. Next off comes this tension spring for the star drag, and we're going to back the star drag nut off. And you can see as you're looking at this, the quality, that's a nice brass gear sleeve there, a couple of tension washers, and then the drag ferrule. So what you've seen here is not very much different than if you were working on a pen reel or another Sealine reel. But this thing just shouts quality the whole way through. It's got a great reputation for being bulletproof, and quite honestly, I've only seen one thing that seems to be a systemic failure with these reels, and that is with very heavy usage, and I mean commercial charter boat fishing kind of usage where it's in play every day, that the free spool lever, which has a stud that rides on a graphite stud that it rides on in the channel, that wears out over time, and the free spool becomes inoperative. So just point a note, but other than that, I haven't seen any failures in these reels that I can speak of that are a result of poor manufacturer or design or skimping on materials. This is a graphite frame. And just for those of you that care about this, it holds approximately 310 yards of 30-pound test, and that's what I have on it now. I have 30-pound test on it for the wreck fishing. Okay, we're going to take the side plate off by removing the 4 screws. Those screws are a little bit different than the screws that come on the 50H. The 50H have thumb screws in a slightly different arrangement. 2 ball bearings in this reel, 1 on each side, heavy-duty metal spool. And the first thing I'm going to do is just clean up some of the dried grease on the non-gear side bearing. And that's coagulated over time, so I'm going to just take a little scruffy pad and just going to rub with that. That should be enough abrasion to get the junk off, which it is. And that's a bearing, so I'm going to oil the bearing, and I'm going to use Reel X oil, which is an oil that's designed for fishing reels. I'm going to kind of give that a good bath, and then what I like to do is take a Phillips head screwdriver to the middle and just rotate that so that the bearing works that oil into it. When that's done, just going to check for cleanliness. And again, you can see the high quality of this. It's a chromed spool. It's a metal spool that has a weight to it, and that weight helps with the bigger fish so that you don't get a torque or a twist or a spool out of alignment. Last thing I do on the spool is just put a little bit of grease on the shaft. I use a reel grease. I recommend folks use reel grease. I use, in this case, it's a Penn Precision reel grease. Any reel grease designed for fishing reels is fine. And you've heard on other videos, if you've watched my other videos, I do not recommend anything but fishing reel oils and greases because I've seen too many examples where they fail. Everything from Vaseline to automotive greases, some too light, some too heavy, all of them detrimental to the fishing reel performance. So stay with a fishing reel product. It's not that expensive. I think the Reel X is, the oil is about $6 for that size container, and the greases are for a tub, a 1 pound tub is about $20, but you can get it in 1 ounce or 2 ounce varieties. Same setup as the Penn 50H on the back side of this from a bridge. 4 screws hold it in. This is your anti-reverse dog. Here's the jack that releases the free spool. Here's that stud I was talking about. There's a stud here, and there's a ramp on the eccentric, and those are the only two failures I've ever seen in the design of this reel. So I'm going to go ahead and take this apart. Some folks ask, how frequently should you service this? I recommend at a minimum you service all of your reels once a year, even if it's just a tune-up. And that's exactly what I'm doing today. It's a tune-up. I've only used this reel for wreck fishing. Haven't used it in a while, and I don't want it to fail me when I go out for the fall season. So I'm doing it right now. If you have heavy usage, if this was your daily driver and you were using this thing 10 or 15 times over the course of the season, I would recommend that you do a mid-season tune-up as well. I like to generally service these at the end of the season rather than the beginning, but with all the things I've been doing, I didn't get around to that. Okay, let's take a look at that side plate for a moment. Here's that second bearing. It sits in the gear side plate. We have the 2 springs. They run on the screws that are up top on that assembly. I'm just going to pull those back. Again, they're going into the parts tray here, so I know where to find them. Here's your 4th. Now, unlike the Penn side plate screws, these are all partially threaded. In the Penn ones, you know, there's fully threaded on the bottom and partially threaded on the top. And there's just a little bit of grease up top on the free spool eccentric, so I'm going to clean that off. I don't know why that dried as much as it did from last year, but it did. And I'm just going to grab that scrubby again to get the rest of it off there. And I'm going to go ahead and just do a little bit of a light blue grease on the eccentric. And I'm going to oil that bearing again, just like we did on the non-gear side. And I'm going to grab that screwdriver just to turn to work that grease in. There's a little bit of grease on the side. I'm going to use a cotton swab just to get that off. And this is my personal reel. Some folks like to know what I fish, what I prefer, and these are one of the reels I do prefer. Again, back you can see the quality of the materials in this reel. This is brass or some kind of composite type of metal here. It's held up over time. I have seen these in a chromed version as well. I'm going to grab that yoke and just clean that off. And you can see big teeth on this one, die cut, stainless. I'm just checking to make sure all the teeth are in play. And then this just speaks and barks the quality behind this one. Major brass gearing, heavy duty drags, and ready to go fishing. So just grab this off on a stack just to make sure that we have everything right. And I replaced these drags last year, so I know they're in good condition. That's not why I decided to do this reel today, but you never know. You can get a piece of line caught in there or something else that is a reason to go ahead and cause failure in the reel. So I'm just grabbing the swab again. This has a little bit of a different setup with the dog spring than a Penn, if you've been working on the Penns. I'm just going to hit this lightly with some WD-40 because there is a little bit of grease on there that can be wiped off. Now, somebody on one of the comments on a different video mentioned that WD-40 is not a lubricant, and that is correct. It's a degreaser. So I'm going to go ahead and lubricate this. I will lubricate the gear sleeve with a drop of the oil internally. And we'll go ahead and we're going to put this back on. And again, you can see the quality on this reel. So if you have the opportunity to pick one of these up used, I would tell you go ahead and do that. Again, I don't tend to promote brands one way or another, but somebody asked me what I fish and what I like. And this is clearly one of the ones on the top of my list. Okay, I take the Cal's Universal Drag Grease. I'm working that into the drag here. And the idea behind the drag grease is to keep the drags flexible. That's its purpose, so that it doesn't dry out, become brittle and crack and underperform. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of that and work that onto each one of these. And again, I have that protective glove here, so it's a little bit better in terms of giving you some control and keeping the junk off your hands. The middle metal washer on the drag stack is an eared or a keyed washer. It belongs in the slots on the gear, and you want to make sure that those get into the slots when you go to reinstall that. Otherwise, it will not function properly. Last one of these. Put the top washer on, and put the cap washer. And we're just about ready to reinstall. So you can see this doesn't take a lot of time to tune up your reel for the next season. And I'll probably be going for the Blackfish probably in another few weeks. I had a couple of minutes here and thought this would be a good one to go ahead and do. Blue grease onto the yoke. Spool gear, there's two sides to the spool gear. The large side, or the teeth side, goes internal, and the slotted side is the one that faces the spool. So we're ready to reinstall. We can put the two screws up top here, side plate screws. Now this does not have the same indentations as a pen reel would for the springs. That's why I put the screws in. It's an easier hold. I'm going to go ahead and put that back on as such. Once we mount that, we can come in with the yoke and the spool gear. We press down. Press down on the assembly, and then we can go ahead and put the free spool jack on over that. And we're pretty much set the way we found that when we removed the gear side. Here's your bridge plate now. The bridge plate simply goes back in and meshes with that gear, the spool gear. And then there are studs that sit into the side case. And the last piece you got to do here is you've got to slide the anti-reverse dog in before you tighten this up. So I partially start the screw. Grab that side plate. Usually sometimes my fingers are too big, and I grab it with a little needle nose pliers, and then you can just simply work it in once you got it there, so that you can see the start of the screw coming through the bridge plate. So that's got the dog in here now, sitting on the ratchet for the anti-reverse, and we can go tighten this up now. So I'm going to grab that screwdriver and get each started now. And I like to make sure they're all started before I finish each one in terms of tightening. Sometimes there's a little out of balance or a twist in it if you tighten one down all the way. So just get them started each way. And what you'll find is that doing it that way, you won't run into any trouble. So okay, so we're going to put this last one in here, and then we'll tighten them all down. And I use an X pattern to do that, so I keep the torsion right on the bridge plate. So it's kind of northeast, southwest, although we're not quite corresponding that way here. So this is the 300 series. There's a 400 and a 600 and a 900. The 900 is the Rock Cod Special. It's a huge reel. And overall, it's a nice reel to fish. So when folks ask me which ones I like, this is pretty much at the top of my list. Oh, and I didn't get that down anyway, so there we go. Okay, so last thing that I want to put that anti-reverse dog spring on. And again, this is an external spring, which is a little nice because you don't have to worry about rotating your shaft or anything in terms of getting it done. Again, I go back to that needle nose pliers to grab the side of it, pull it, and then loop it over the little top. And now I should have a functioning anti-reverse drag dog. And you can hear that it's working just fine. So the one piece I haven't been able to lube because of the assembly process is the jack. I'll go ahead and grab some blue grease and put that on there. And then we can go ahead and start reinstalling this. I'm going to put the ferrule on this first. I'm going to put the two washers. And again, if you didn't know the reel and you were kind of going back this and saying, gee, I forgot where these pieces go to the picture show, the schematic, and that'll help you along the way. Okay, I'm going to just tighten this down. Now on the older reels like the 50H and that, if this has been worked on a lot, you might have trouble with that gear sleeve. And one of the problems with the 50H and probably this reel as well is that the general mechanical parts are not available for it. The parts for the drags still are, but most of the internal workings you're going to have to get used. Okay, I have that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put that on onto the frame before I go ahead and do the handle, just because the handle gets in the way. We're going to seat these back to my Phillips head screwdriver for these. Now some folks also ask about the mechanical screwdriver. Can we use the battery operated ones? And my general feeling on those is that they have too much torque and they're going to break more reels than are going to help fix, particularly reels with plastic side plates or metal side plates. Sometimes over torquing them warps them or cracks them. I understand that there's folks out there that don't have hand strength, and if you don't and you need to use that, I would always recommend that leave it short and tighten up the last piece by hand. So by leaving it short, I mean leave it out like that, and then the last 2 or 3 turns, go do that one by hand if you need to. I understand in the factories these days they use air tools. Those air tools are set to a specific torque, and I guess it makes it go easier. But if you're into reel repair and you enjoy working with your hands, then you might as well continue to work with your hands to do that. Okay, so I got these side plates are all in. I'm just going to give it a spin to make sure that I've got it working properly before I put the handle on. And I got a nice smooth reel, and hopefully I'm going to get some fish on the other end of that reel when we go. All right, the next thing on is the torsion spring for the drag, star drag. You can go ahead and put the handle on. Again, this nut is the same nut, or nut, it's a screw. The same screw outside dimensions or configuration as a pen. So I'm just using a pen reel handle for that. I'm not quite sure why that worked out the way it did, but it did. And I'm kind of grateful to Daiwa for that. There's a couple of reels out on the marketplace that have an odd configuration for the handle. I'm thinking of the old Garcia 624s, for example, the 600 series with the yellow side plate. They've got a handle that's pretty much just for them. And unfortunately, I wound up using pliers because I don't have a wrench for it. And there's no easy way to get it off. So, but in this case, the Sealines and the pens share that, and I'm thankful for it. Okay, there we go. So I'm ready. Talk about going. I'm ready to go black fishing or tog fishing here in the Northeast on the wrecks in this coming fall season. And if you've got one of these, I hope this showed you how to tune it up. If you were thinking about buying one of these, even though I don't go about recommending products too much, I would tell you I've been totally satisfied with this, and if you want a recommendation, you can have one. I think that these are great reels. You saw the quality inside of them with the brass gearing, the heavy-duty chroming, the nice side plates, the strong graphite frame, the heavy metal spool, and quite honestly, you can probably pick these things up for $30 or $40 used, and if they're in good condition, they're going to last you longer than you probably want them to last. So with that, if you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you want to see more of these, please subscribe to my channel, as I'm bringing these reel repair projects and rebuilds to YouTube to share my experiences. With that, I'm going to thank you for watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.